Good morning. It is 7 a.m. Quorum is present, and the meeting has been duly called and posted in the time and manner required by law. Therefore, I will call this September 7th, 2023 regular meeting and workshop of the Board of Trustees of the Lubbock Independent School District to order. I will begin our meeting by inviting Ben Lagasse, Executive Pastor at Redeemer Church. There's Ben. Good morning. To open the meeting with a prayer and lead the audience in the pledges to the American and Texas flags.
All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, your word teaches us that you guide those who seek direction. You bring clarity to those in the midst of uncertainty. So as we gather for this board meeting, we ask for your wisdom. Guide us in making decisions that strengthen our educational standards and inspire us to act with unwavering dedication. Help us to consistently prioritize the holistic growth of our students so that our educational community thrives and every child grows in both knowledge and character. And in the burdens of leadership, be the strength that holds us up, and the stress of responsibility, be the peace which guards our hearts, and in the discouragement of failure, be the lifter of our heads, and in the day of celebration, be the source of our joy. We ask these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
We're going to begin our agenda this morning with a recognition of some wonderful middle school students. We're going to hear about the 2023 Evans Middle School Pentathlon team from Chad Haskins, our Advanced Academics Coordinator. There's Chad. Chad is going to come to the podium and introduce the team members and tell us about their accomplishments. Good morning.
Good morning, President Brady, Dr. Rollo, ladies and gentlemen of the board. It's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to recognize these outstanding students. Academic Pentathlon is a middle school program that is really designed to enhance talents and interest in academics, and we use it to help feed our academic octathlon and decathlon programs in high school. So I hope to see the success of these bleed into our high school programs. In pentathlon, teams of 9 students compete in 5 different events: math, science, social science, language arts, and fine arts, in addition to the Super Bowl quiz that our decathlon students compete in as well. The content in each of these 5 subjects is centered around a theme. Last year's theme was the American Revolution. So the Evans Middle School Pentathlon team ended the season last year with a 9th place finish at the National Online Finals after a standout performance in the combined region and state meets in the spring. Excuse me. In the region meet, Evans finished first place overall with a final score of 15,423 points and earned 41 individual medals. So just an outstanding performance they had. The score placed them 5th overall in the state, and that qualified them for the online finals in May. In the National Online Finals, they placed 5th overall with a score of 13,229 points. A little bit lower, but those tests get much harder the further they progress in that competition. And so help me recognize these outstanding students. So we will start with, oh, no, I'll give you guys, I'm sorry. So our first competitor is May Arrington. Okay, the next student is Brady Curry, and Brady is representing our father. Okay, the next student to be recognized is Jack Greaser. Okay. Our next student to be recognized is Evelyn Holman. Next student is Evan Lewis. Our next student is Austin Ponce.
Well done, sir.
Like that hat.
The next student is Rihan Vanapali. Okay, our next student is Sophie Wigley. And I don't believe Sophie is here today. And our final team member is Landon Wolf. And while they're preparing for the group photo, I'll also introduce the pentathlon coach that worked with this group for hours and hours in the past year, as Mr. Nick Wolf.
See your certificates, big smiles. Right. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
And parents, thank you. Thank you so much for supporting your students in this.
As we open it up to trustee comments, I'll take a minute before they leave. I know on behalf of the board, we just can't say enough about our parents who support kiddos who have these kind of achievements that allow us to recognize them. It doesn't happen without the folks at home. Especially fun to see young people whose parents you've known for a long, long time do well. So with that, I'll certainly open it up to any other trustee comments.
Congratulations to all the students and to the parents. And they're not in here, but to a little bit down the line. But there's scholarship money attached to decathlon performance. So stick with it, and that will help you in your college years.
Spoken like a parent who has a child in college.
Amen. It only stands to get better for them, absolutely. And thanks to the staff, their peers and whatnot. What grade were these kids? They were middle school, right?
They were eighth grade.
Eighth
Yeah,
grade,
ninth now.
goodness, some of them
They're
are
in
real
high
tough. They look
school.
high school students, right? Oh, nice. Well, anyway, congratulations to every one of you, and God bless you guys in your future endeavors.
Obviously some personal satisfaction there with my middle son, but proud of all those kiddos. What's cool for those of you who may not know, every single one of those kids has another extracurricular activity. Most of them have multiple, and whether that be band or whatnot, I know all of them play at least one sport, and so we've got some really well-rounded kiddos. And hats off. I wish Mr. Wolf was still in here. He's one of the favorite teachers throughout Evans, and there's some great ones over there, but he really supports those kids, and he's built that program to something that's pretty cool, and just appreciative of the parents for their involvement, getting kids to and fro. Having three that go different ways, it can be challenging. So
Well, we'll have to give him a personal shout out.
All right, thank you, guys. Anything else? Dr. Rollo?
I would just like to say you guys know how important the academic decathlon program is for me personally, serving on the Texas Academic Decathlon Board for the last several years. But this is the farthest that we have had a middle school team advance.
Wow,
And so it
that's
really
awesome.
puts Lubbock ISD on the map for pentathlon. So I'm really proud of this achievement, and I hope that we have more teams from more of our middle schools participating and moving forward like this team did. And it's the energy and time and investment they put into preparing for this that helped them get over the top. That determination is important.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's really cool. I didn't know that. Thanks. All right, item 4, citizen comments. Next order of business is citizen comments. Before you begin, I would like to review the provisions in board policy governing the procedures for public participation as reflected in policy BED local. The audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on the matters being considered by the board. I will remind members of the board that the citizens' comments section of our board meeting is for purposes of listening to the patrons, but we are not allowed to comment or debate on issues that are not otherwise posted. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes, and a timer will go off at the completion of 3 minutes. Please conclude your comments within the time limit allowed. As I call your name, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and begin your comments. Our first commenter today is Peter Muehlberger. Mr. Muehlberger, did I get that about right?
Mulberger.
Muehlberger, okay, thank you, Mr. Muehlberger.
It's Peter Mulberger. I'm from 201 Homestead Avenue, Lubbock, Texas. I'm also with the Lubbock Freedom to Read Coalition. I'll make 2 points. That Lubbock book banning efforts are not part of a grassroots movement, but was likely orchestrated from outside Texas. And secondly, the point of the book banning effort is to wreck Texas public school systems. The evidence suggests that book banning efforts are part of an orchestrated nationwide campaign backed by extreme libertarian billionaires who have long sought to undermine public education. The American Library Association has a telling graphic that shows that the number of unique book bans or book titles challenged in the U.S. fluctuated between 190 and 378 between 2000 and 2020. Challenges shot up to 1,858. In 22, it rose up to 2,571. Banning efforts occurred simultaneously across many states, with 32 states seeing sharp increases in the 21 to 22 school year. This suggests these banning efforts were instigated and orchestrated by a nationwide network with substantial resources. Where there is transparency on funding sources for book bans, we always find major funding from the Charles Koch Donor Network. The True Texas Project, which in July held a meeting in Lubbock to promote book bans, received the majority of its PAC money from the Defend Texas Liberty PAC. This PAC is funded by Timothy Dunn and Ferris Wilks, Texas oil and gas billionaires with very deep ties to the Koch Donor Network. We began to organize because we expected that the True Texas Project would start a major push for book bans in Lubbock under a differently named group, which it has. That push began a month later with book ban protests and people condemning so-called pornographic library materials to the school board. The Koch Donor Network has vast resources and reach. In 2016, Koch pledged to spend $900 million on political efforts, outspending the GOP, which spent $657 million in an election year. Koch-funded groups operate in every state, and Koch is from multiple states. Charles Koch intends to end public education. This is consistent with his extreme Austrian economics and Rand-based libertarianism. This sees all state interference in society as harmful, particularly when it comes to education. He has spent many tens of millions forcing universities to open to his long discredited libertarian ideology. Koch and his allies, such as Betsy Dunn, Governor Abbott, have long promoted school vouchers, and Koch has bled millions to incubate private schools. We believe the book banning effort in Texas seeks to cause anger and division between conservative and liberal parents, with the goal of getting these parents to want school vouchers so they can take their children out of the public schools. This will greatly cut funding for public schools and result in a tiered system of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulberger. My next commenter is Vera Rose Gimza. Good morning, Ms. Gimza. Be sure and pull the mic down for yourself, please.
My name is Vera Rose Gimza. Address is 2813 21st Street, 79410, Lubbock, Texas. May I begin?
You may.
Okay. My name is Vera Rose. I am a sophomore at Lubbock High School, and I love to read. Before I begin, I have one request. Listen with an open mind. I am a student who has found myself running into this issue. I am not here to push an agenda, but to speak for myself. Once again, the American Library Association reports that a record 2,571 titles were censorship targets in 2022, and the ed scare creating this must end. Recently, the main argument against many of the books in our school library is that they are inappropriate for students. To this, I present 3 points. Firstly, it is much harder for students, especially elementary and middle schoolers, to find explicit content in books than it would be for them to access it online or to overhear it from people shouting it in the halls and in cafeterias. If you've attended school, you know how information can spread like wildfire. We cannot try to remove this information by targeting libraries for the sake of protecting the kids, especially when it is the least effective way to do so. If you want your child to treat sensitive topics with dignity, start by communicating and establishing boundaries with them. Open discussion is far better than a schoolmate, or worse, a stranger on the internet, teaching them instead of you. It is your duty to teach your child responsibility in an environment full of peer pressure and change. Secondly, consider the main point of a book, to teach. School librarian Samantha Hull says, any discomfort that arises from what we read is outweighed by the possibility of learning. It's time to consider what you are fighting so hard not to learn. Books should not be banned from school libraries unless they endorse violence or hate. While this may seem super accepting, books are there to learn from. We are taught to be like the good guys instead of the bad guys, although we're always the heroes in our own stories. If you are concerned of what your child could learn from a novel, read it in full first. Think, A, does this teach hate toward anyone or anything? B, is this realistic to what my child might face? And finally, D, if there is someone who could learn from this book, would it really be fair to take it away from them? If you aren't comfortable with the book after that, great news. Your kid doesn't have to read it, but you shouldn't take it away from other families who drew a different conclusion. It is simply not your place. Finally, I ask you to look at the book through an objective lens. Book bans tend to target stories with marginalized groups in them, so check yourself on your prejudice. While 70% of parents recorded that they were against book banning, a vocal minority has been attempting to speak for all. Students need to learn about the world, and we'll have to face all the scary bits whether we read about it or experience it first. Which would you prefer? Thank you.
Well said.
Jim Baxa. Morning, Jim.
Good morning. Jim Baxa, 5711 Interstate 27. Can of worms has been opened, and ultimately that can of worms is opened by the inactivity of this board. We have dirty, filthy books in our school district, in our libraries here. And I think the board thought, I'm not going to say anything, I'm not going to do anything, and the problem will go away. Well, you see here we had at least 2 people on one side and more on the other side coming, There's become a back and forth because of inactivity. When this first came to light months and months ago, that there were all these books all across Texas with, and I'm not going to read those books. I'm not going to tell you what they say because, frankly, it would be a violation of FCC regulations to put it on the LISD TV right now. It's actually illegal to read half of what these books say on TV. But yet, somehow, they're okay in schools. And that just blows my mind. But so we have all these books going on. Nobody's done anything. And now you as the board have to deal with it because you have the pro and con coming up, and it's not going to stop. So what will you do? Will you step up and lead? You know, I spoke here a couple weeks ago, and has anything happened since then? Or have y'all just said you don't care about what's going on in your school? I know many of you campaigned as conservatives, so I expect action. I expect you to do the right thing, protect these children. I mean, we have some groomers over here who would love to groom these children at this school for their deviancy. And that's disgusting, and we need adults to step up and protect those children. So I call upon y'all, do your job as school board members and protect these children and get these books out of these schools right now. And this problem's not going to go away. It's not going to slink away. And to the first commenter, yes, there's a lot of money behind the True Texas Project and the effort to get these books out of school. And yes, that money will go into the school board races if people don't do the right thing. Thank you.
Shirley Dempsey. Ms. Dempsey with us? Kimberly Gonzalez. Good morning, Ms. Gonzalez. If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Kimberly Gonzalez. I live at 6966 26th Street.
Please begin.
My name is Kim Gonzalez, and I'm with the Lubbock Freedom to Read Coalition. I would like to make a few points regarding our position against book bans. First, the Lubbock Freedom to Read Coalition is not in favor of having any and all materials in school libraries. But second, we trust our educators and current system have and will continue. Sorry. Something happened with this.
It's okay. Take your time. I had that happen to me in a trial one time, and it just absolutely. I only take paper now because it just the dadgum
Sorry,
computers
pull it
quit
up a
working when
different
you need
way.
them. It's okay.
Thank you for stopping my time. Okay, I lost my second point because there's something weird going on here. But third, we would likely depart from the views of Lubbock Books Exposed in what we consider pornography and what children should be exposed to. Obviously, there is plenty of degrading pornography in the world, and we wouldn't want school libraries disseminating such materials. Likely, the biggest source of degrading pornography is the internet, to which most students have free access via their telephones, tablets, television, etc. This speaks for the need to have library books that deal with sexuality and relationships in a healthy way that counteracts the awful materials to which children already are exposed. We trust the current system. We believe you're doing a good job. We believe educators are best positioned to judge the appropriateness of books in our schools. Educators have read the entirety of books that banners want to condemn and can judge the whole work on artistic merit and the capacity to advance the social and psychological development of our children. A few iffy quotes from a book does not mean that taken in its entirety the book is not worthy. We believe that the current system to handle book banning, in which a committee of educators and parents decide the fate of a book, so long as that system is not abused and under pressure and harassment from the outside, is the appropriate thing to do. Unfortunately, past efforts to ban books have resulted in harassment and threats. We challenge Lubbock Books Exposed to publicly reject such tactics and extreme measures. We believe that children should be exposed to a wide variety of materials. Many book banners demand complete exclusion of sexuality from books to protect what they imagine are their completely sexually innocent children. We need books that help children come to healthy terms with their sexuality and their eventual relationships, not books that ignore reality where children are already well aware. If schools and parents do not do this, the internet will. and in ways that are likely to be highly detrimental to the students at LISD and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry about point 2.
All right. Stephanie Smith. Good morning, Ms. Smith.
My name is Stephanie Smith, and I live at 2825 67th Street. All my children have attended Lubbock ISD. And I'm going to turn on my own timer here for a second. Okay. Consider this. Getting anyone to think, to question, to reason, make decisions, and increase their knowledge would be education. This would include areas not commonly in their experience. The experience of today's children is inundated with media of TV, internet, rushing to sports events. Books are not on the forefront. Yes, the teachers in the school need a selling point to get students to read. Sparking curiosity is most effective. Since animals are not clones, a variety of subjects is needed. And yes, we are animals. The Scarlet Letter of Mice and Men, Stranger in a Strange Land, Kite Runner are examples of books at high school or college prep that emphasize an environment unfamiliar and can trigger emotional reactions to the characters and to the situation. This is a way to be into the mind of maybe another human and that view and have compassion for the characters. A good book has to have a character development, unpredictable flow, holding interest. Many can integrate history with a character's journey. Many points of view allow a person to say, I can understand how you might see it that way. This allows non-combative discussion and a possible compromise. Marriages, government, and contract involve this everyday skill. Democracy absolutely needs it. Just because a book may have bad language or a sexual encounter does not make it a book to ban. The students have been able to integrate, the students have to be able to integrate with a not so perfect world that we live in. The book without features that define a good story might be considered unacceptable. As an example, maybe your paperback romance novel. Also, what moral code should follow this district? Many people have a different view of God. How can a district teach if it is based on one religion or moral code? Obviously, hurting others, fair play, etc. would be true of any religion or organization. It helps us to find common ground. I do not have time to go into the differences and similarities of religion or books, but neither do you as a district board. The librarians and teachers have a task, and they do it very well. Do not downgrade their value. It takes a village to raise a child. Having books at younger ages show that differences and similarities could get kids to gain compassion for those who are different. I do hope that parents want their kids educated and not afraid of things that are different. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Laura Lee Schaefer. Good morning, Ms. Schaefer.
My name is Lorelei Schaefer. And what else do I need to state in the record?
Address, please.
Address 4504 139th Street, 79424.
Please begin.
Good morning, Lubbock ISD School Board. My name is Lorelei Schaefer, and I'm part of a nonprofit organization called Freedom Forever, dedicated to protecting children from all forms of abuse, including trafficking and exploitation. Our number one mission is to identify vulnerabilities and access points so we can intervene before more kids are groomed, abused, and exploited. I had the honor of meeting with Lubbock High School Principal Mr. Young, as well as Superintendent Ms. Rollo, and I appreciate your time, about a list of books that I've uncovered that are in your schools. One being Flamer. It's a young adult graphic novel. And so I brought this to the principal's attention as well as the superintendent's, and it was told that the process is to fill out these instructional resource forms, and on it, it asks to state the title, which is Flamer, the author. Have I reviewed it? Yes. It asks me, what in the resource do I object? And so I included alternate sexualities, sexual activities, sexual nudity, profanity, and derogatory terms, violence, including self-harm. It also asks, what do you believe might be the result of using this resource? I wrote trauma and suicide. And it goes on to ask me, do I, want to remove this? And I said yes, because here's why, you guys. It shows on figure 1 in this book. It says, okay, who wants my hot wiener? Oh yeah, baby, slide it right into my buns. You guys are gross. On figure 2, I think I figured out what taking care of business means. We are each busting a load into this bottle. If you don't come, you have to drink it. Ha 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 ha. Give me that, I'll show you. And then on this page, it shows that the child's having feelings to what he just did. Wow, that was weird and gross and wrong, but I feel so excited. And then you flip to the next page, and this is a knife going through a wrist. I'm having a really hard time filling out these forms for books like this, and it just goes on. Here's a book, Push. This book is a dad having sex with his daughter. And it says on page 127, my clit swell up, faint daddy. Daddy sick me, disgust me, but still he sex me up. I nauseous in my stomach, but not tight in my twat, and I think I want it back. But the smell of the bedroom, the hurt, he slapped my face till it sting, and my ears sing separate songs. You guys, these are the kind of books that we're asking for you guys to remove.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Colton Foster. Mr. Foster. Morgan Kirkpatrick. Good morning, Morgan.
Morgan Kirkpatrick, 4417 77th. Almost a year ago, I spoke in the same room to many of those here today. I urged the board and the district to show your support for teachers and librarians. You have yet to do so, so I thought you might be willing to listen to current teachers who are unable to attend. The first is from a concerned educator and bibliophile. Banning books in education, especially when done by a school board, has significant downsides. It restricts intellectual freedom, limits diverse perspectives, and hinders critical thinking among students. Such censorship can stifle creativity and deprive learners of valuable opportunities to engage with complex and controversial issues, ultimately impeding their overall education and personal growth. As all we limit is the chance for others to express themselves and see themselves reflected in literature, as well as seeing others' perspectives in a new way. The next is from both a mom and a teacher. I cannot say that I ever thought I would have to defend books and the right to read to a room full of adults. I've spent over 20 years explaining this concept to teenagers during my teaching career, but nothing proves that words and ideas are strong and more important than a group of people trying to silence and erase them. While I understand the fear parents face when their children are introduced to ideas that contradict what is taught in the home, I welcome every conversation that a piece of text instigates, because I know the day is coming when my child won't come to me for the answers. But for now, at this moment, she is. She can read anything her comprehension allows her to, and anything her curiosity guides her toward. This is risky, but as a parent, it is my job to guide her through difficult and foreign ideas. It is my job to know what she is reading, just as it is my job to decide what she can and cannot read. I trust that the librarian with a master's degree can choose books that are appropriate for the students at his or her school. And I trust that if I have a problem with the content of a book, that I can suggest its removal. But I am just one parent, and my opinion should not invalidate all other parents' rights and decisions. That's not my job. Removing all ideas that contradict your own is antithetical to an education. An education requires you to make informed decisions and understand the world around you, not agree with the world around you. If you have encountered ideas opposing yours, congratulations. You not only understood the opposing stance, but your own. How can students know who they are and what they believe if they never see or hear conflicting viewpoints? How can a child safely learn about an ever-changing world if she is prohibited from merely reading about it? Wouldn't it be nice to know that she can experience the myriad lives of a diverse population in her mind and heart just by reading their stories on a page? There is much to be enraged about in this world, but a young person discovering, defining, and solidifying their beliefs and intelligence with a book is not one of them. It's from a well-read teacher. Thank you.
Nick Harpster. Good morning.
My name is Dr. Nick Harpster. I'm here to represent the Lubbock Right to Read Coalition on behalf of Lubbock Pride. I reside at 1921 61st Street and currently have a sophomore that attends Monterey High School. Attempts to ban books have doubled in the past 2 years and is at the highest level since the American Library Association started tracking 2 decades ago. The recent uptick in challenges to school books has largely targeted titles with LGBTQ storylines and characters, with up to 75% of children's picture books and nearly half of books challenged overall being written by or having storylines about LGBTQ people. The recent push is much different than a parent challenging one specific book. This disturbing new trend is known as copycat challenging, which happens when a group compiles a list of books that they deem inappropriate, then share this list with other groups to challenge at their local libraries. Most challenges are from outside sources that have absolutely no business interfering with local schools and libraries. A recent report showed that 60% of book challenges come from just 11 people. 11 people should not have the say in what over 49 million public school students nationwide read. The claim of parental rights, protection of children, and dog whistle terms like grooming and pornography are purposely chosen to distort the true agenda of these groups. Parents have had the ability to see what books are available in libraries for years. And most library books are supplementary and optional reading, not required reading materials. Pornography has never been allowed in schools, and having the ability to read a book about the real-life experiences of a person in the LGBTQ+ community is not grooming. Reading a book about a penguin having 2 dads is not going to make a child gay any more than reading a book about dinosaurs will turn your child into a T-Rex. Having the opportunity to choose books that represent who you are as a person, or to learn about someone who may be different than you, is what education is all about. Research and reviews of books dealing with the LGBTQ experience often point out how these books can save lives. Having representation in books and other media allows for youth to feel more comfortable in their own skin and maybe even escape into a book for a moment to remove themselves from the barrage of bullying and harassment that many LGBTQ students face in schools. Narrowing the perspectives that are available in the library, especially in public school setting, is dangerous and counter to learning. Having a narrow worldview makes kids less empathetic and reduces their critical thinking skills. All this being said, the biggest thing to remember is that LASD hires qualified librarians for a purpose. All schools should have librarians in place, and they should be allowed to do their jobs. It is already their job to determine which books are appropriate for certain grade levels and which books will be of interest to the students attending that school, meaning that they will actually read, which is the main hope of a true librarian and hopefully LASD as well. Thank you.
Phyllis Gant Gambles. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Phyllis Gambles, 2905 East Baylor, Lubbock, Texas. I'm not here about books. I'm here about having children in schools safely so that they can read whatever material is put before them. We're less than 30 days into a new school year. I represent the Lubbock NAACP Legal Redress Chair. It's heartbreaking to me for the many topics that I personally have brought to you guys. regarding issues in our schools, asking that leaders be evaluated, spoken to, maybe more training, and it's fallen on deaf ears. No response is a response. So less than 30 days into school, I have an Irons parent on my phone crying. Second day of school, she said to her principal, the school board said, that kid and my kid can't be in the same school. Why are they both here? Principal's response, yeah, we've got a red flag on the address. We're checking into that. A week later, that kid is attacked by that student, ultimately taken off the bus and then slammed to the ground by Lubbock PD. I don't fault him. I fault you guys. He was trying to do his job. He was over the top in doing it, but he's trying to break up a situation that never should have happened. Estacado High School. I have a parent crying on my phone because her son has reported being bullied by a young lady who represents herself as a guy and ultimately hits him in the face. He defends himself and he's suspended from school. Irons School needs new leadership. Estacado High School needs new leadership. When you show up for a job, if you cannot do that job, you need a career change. We go down and I have parents calling me, asking me if I will sponsor meals for the football team. I get a complaint from a lady, formal complaint, former educator. She chose to resign from Estacado High School because she went to her principal last year with these issues. Almost $6,000 of booster money gone. We have a possible issue with our football coach, whose wife is the booster president. Now, you guys, I don't go to Estacado, right? So somebody's got to bring me the information. And I'm dressed and ready to come. I can be your breakfast, I can be your lunch, I can be your dinner, because I'm going to stand for children, no matter what. You might send Miss Wilbanks a message, and I'm almost done, and let her know I'm okay if she doesn't like me. My address and her address are far apart. Do your job. I'm a product.
Ms. Gamble, your time has expired. You know how much time you have. I
Yes,
work
sir.
very hard to be courteous. If you have a sentence to say to wrap up, you may.
I have a sentence to say. The law program that you guys overlooked is now on the desk of the Department of Justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Dunham.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak today and talk about my concerns. I'm here as a retired educator to stand up for school personnel, in particular librarians. When advocates,
I need to ask you to state your name and address.
oh,
for the
sorry,
record, please.
Charlotte Dunham, and 1102 Primrose, Lubbock.
Thank you. Please
Sorry
continue.
about that. I'm here to stand up for school personnel when advocates for banning books use disrespectful and divisive language. Book banning advocates have been known to call librarians pornographers, which is intended to create fear and anger in parents. Communities have lost dedicated librarians who left their jobs because of harassment and threats to them and their families because of this name calling. There is very little agreement about what is meant when something is called pornography or filthy, but most definitions say that it is something with sexual content meant to arouse. Something with sexual content that has aesthetic or social value is not necessarily pornography, especially when made available to age-appropriate readers. I urge caution when reacting to someone reading a shocking passage that has been cherry-picked to condemn the whole book. Cherry-picking does not allow for the understanding of the merits of the entire work or the merits for an individual reader. even these shocking passages read today, sadly, there are a lot of students in our schools that are victims of the abuse described in these books. And if those books allow or urge students to get help and get counseling, who is to judge? I say the parents is to judge, and the professional librarians as well. Take Lawn Boy, for example, which is a book, according to the American Library Association, the 7th most banned book in 2022. It was banned because of sexually explicit language and swearing, primarily referring to a description of an incident with another 4th grader, but was important for understanding his original recognition of being gay. And none of the language in Lawn Boy is anything like what was read today, okay? And it was still banned. So I think we also have to be cautious about painting everything with the same brush. But it was a very small part of a story of growing up under really difficult circumstances. Poverty, an alcoholic mother, a rejecting father, a disabled brother. This is a moving story of how this young man overcame struggles to become a well-adjusted, mature adult. Adolescents and young adults will lose something important if this book is rejected because of a few lines in a bigger story. Calling a book pornographic is divisive, or filthy, is divisive because it makes it hard to find a middle ground. It demonstrates, demonizes those who disagree, and is dishonest as far as I'm concerned. We urge you to use the expertise of your librarians, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Dunn. Latrell Williams. Ms. Williams. Lee Madrid. Good morning, Mr. Madrid.
Good morning.
Please state your name and address and begin.
Lee Madrid, 2410 Baylor Street, Lubbock. Hello, everyone. Members of the board, thank you so much for your time and opportunity to voice my position on the availability of books to the students here in Lubbock. Like I said, my name is Lee Madrid. I was born and raised here, educated here in Lubbock. I currently reside across the street from Cavazos Junior High in the house that my grandfather raised my father and aunts and uncles in. And if you have school-age kids, unfortunately you can't make it right now. You're getting them ready for school. So I'm glad to speak up for them. I wish the Evans kids could hear how we're fighting for their freedom to read what they choose. I rise to speak today as a dedicated member of this community that wants to see Lubbock grow with intelligent citizens that can contribute to making this city, county, state, and country better. As a mentor and tutor to my younger family members that are now going through the Lubbock school system, I know that it's likely that they'll become local police officers, librarians, nurses, lawyers in this community. And, excuse me, we need to trust that they will become intelligent, articulate professionals that can communicate with subtleties and nuance. So reading is fundamental to make this happen. And I'm here to appeal to you all to continue to allow the availability of these books for these students in Lubbock and to support our teachers and librarians. We can't afford to let this cancel culture limit the magic that books bring to our lives. You know, I've been asked to participate in canceling books. There's countless examples of that kind of thing, but I refuse. I just think our voices need to be heard, and we're smart enough to be able to discern what we should read. The indiscriminate nature of that cancel culture is a very slippery slope, very dangerous. In fact, in Utah, the Davis School District removed the King James Version of the Bible from elementaries and middle schools in June of this year. And we all just prayed together in this room. I'm pretty sure that we wouldn't want that to happen in our community here. I remember when I first learned the reason and the consequences to limiting books in the book I read at Coronado High School called Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury once said about this, "There are worse crimes than burning books. One of them is not reading them." So please keep these books available to our students and support our teachers and librarians because reading is fundamental. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Madrid. I will try again the folks that I called earlier, see if they've arrived. Shirley Dempsey, Colton Foster, Latrell Williams. Okay. That ends the public comment section of our meeting. Moving into item 5, financials. Do we have any members of the public who'd like to address the board regarding any of the financial items posted? Seeing none, we'll proceed with approval of the budget summary report for the month ending July 31st, budget amendments and transfers for the same time period, statement of taxes collected for the same time period, and the investment report also for July of 2023. Shay Jennings.
Good morning. Yes,
morning.
July is the first month of the new fiscal year, so activity, investment-wise, tax-wise, all of that is pretty minimal. You will see quite a few budget amendments, and that is all due to the reappropriation of POs that were entered last year but weren't received, so we're reappropriating that budget to pay those this year. That is part of the fund balance designations that will be brought to the board next month. So other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Members, you've heard the explanation. The financial packet was in, the financial items, pardon me, were in your board packet. Any questions or comments for Ms. Jennings? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the financials as presented?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Board approval of minutes for the workshop meeting held August 10 and regular meeting held August 2024 of 2023. Any corrections to the minutes from the August meetings of the board as printed and distributed? Hearing none, minutes are approved as printed. Item 7, academic action items. Any members of the public who would like to address the board regarding the academic action items posted? Seeing none, item A, my annual least favorite item, approval of class size waivers. Dr. Rollo.
Yes, well, you'll see from the list that this year we do not have as many that we are bringing to you as we have in years past.
Always good to hear.
But every year in elementary, we have to do a little shuffling after school gets started as we look at class sizes, because what we predicted does not always pan out to what is the students that actually arrive in different classrooms across the district. And so rather than adding additional teachers and some of our areas to be under that 22-to-1, we're asking you to approve some waivers. You'll notice that most of them are at 23-to-1 or 22-to-1. It just may be that there are 2 teachers at that grade level and one class has 23 and one has 22. The highest one is at Stewart. You'll see a 24-to-1. Know that we have approved a vacancy, shifted a vacancy, I should say, not approved a new vacancy, but shifted a vacancy from another campus to Stewart. So Mr. Gillespie, or Dr. Gillespie, I should say, is actively looking for a first grade teacher right now, but or second grade teacher, I'm sorry. But that waiver will be cleared as soon as we are able to find someone.
And just to be clear, after my smart aleck remark, there's only one 24-to-1 and there's nothing higher than that.
No, that's right. And again, we're rectifying that one.
All right. Members,
And that
questions
was
or comments?
That was an elementary, correct?
Yes, these are all elementary. The 22-to-1 cap size
that's
is
usually
for
the case.
kindergarten through 4th grade in
Do,
elementary
do they
grades.
have paraprofessionals in there with them? In any of those?
Not at this time. I mean, they could. It depends on if the campus has assigned one of their campus allotted paraprofessionals to help in those situations. But do keep in mind too that our elementary schools, using some of their ESSER dollars and title dollars, have interventionists that push into the classroom and also pull out small groups of
They
students.
just do have the autonomy to get it to you if need be. Okay, nice.
Good questions. Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the class size waivers?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of memorandum of understanding with Education Service Center Region 17 for the Texas Lesson Study Program. Dr. Rollo.
Yes, I'm actually going to ask Misty to share a little bit of information about this. It's a way of providing additional support around math for our teachers teaching Eureka Math this year.
So as you know, we've talked about that we'll be using Eureka Math this year in a number of our campuses as part of a pilot. Those campuses selected to participate. It's an elementary math curriculum that's part of our high-quality instructional materials. This memorandum of understanding gives us additional support. So it means that the coaches and the support at the service center, they come out and work with our teachers. They provide extra help to look at those lessons, determine what it is that they're trying to do and get ready. And it's part of the process that the state is offering as part of that implementation. So it's just additional help.
Could you remind us, please, which campuses we're running this pilot on?
We are running them. I can send you the list because it is, I believe, is it 19?
It's most.
Okay,
20.
okay.
Yeah, it's 20 of the, yeah, it's almost across the entire district. So,
Okay.
and they self-selected to participate after a year-long study of looking at
It was
a
an
math
opt-in kind of
framework and
thing?
an opt-in,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right.
But we can send you that list.
Cool. I just was wondering how broad it was. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
okay, great. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Ryan?
Dr. Rollo or Misty, whoever wants it, what program are we going to get rid of if we implement this full-time moving forward?
Yeah, so we use Go Math in elementary as our adopted, and if we go to Eureka full scale, then you would no longer use Go Math across the district. Yes, sir.
I just, as we've talked about many times, we've got these dinosaurs that we keep in the buildings
Yes.
and never
Yes.
get rid of, and so if we're spending money on a new program, I would like to see us not spend money on
Yes.
whatever program that replaced.
Yes, and we're actually part of a pilot with the state, part of the CREMSI pilot with Eureka, so you have the opportunity to pilot that with their resources to see if that's something that is effective and works, and then you can make that decision.
So the campuses that
we
are
could also call it a trial basis as
Yes.
opposed to
Yes.
just pilot.
and the campuses that are using Eureka are not using Go Math.
Correct.
So
Right.
it's one or the other.
But
I
like
think his
many of
point
our-
is he doesn't want to subscribe to Newsweek.
I was gonna say,
Right.
well, my guess is that we've already paid for that license for whatever we were
Right,
previously
so
using.
it's, right, so that, you do the pilot, and then that's part of the abandonment process,
Yeah.
so, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Ryan.
No, no, no.
Yeah, yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Eureka is at no cost to
Correct.
us.
Yeah, that's part of the state.
The state is,
Yeah.
is
Uh-huh.
allowing us to use it at no cost to us.
We're part of the CREMSI grant.
How does staff feel about it?
They selected, so when they met in the spring to evaluate it, we originally started at Alderson, Hodges, and Irvin. And so they did it a year ahead. And so after people visited their campuses, they looked at it, we had a committee that came together, then those principals did an evaluation, met with their team and said, is this something we want to opt into? So we have a lot of buy-in around it.
I was just concerned in regards, this will come and go and then something new will come up again, that's the problem that
So
I'm
this was
hearing.
part of LPN's autonomy to choose a different curriculum, and so they chose Eureka Math this last year. So a lot of our campuses were curious about how it was going, went in and visited their classrooms, and that's why we offered it to anyone who wanted to try it this year and opt in.
Fair enough, thank you.
So we're talking elementary campuses only?
Yes, Eureka is just for K-5.
Good questions, good discussion. Any other questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of reappointment of Star Care Specialty Health System Board of Trustee. Dr. Rollo.
Yes, as you guys are aware, Lubbock ISD is a sponsoring agency that appoints 3 members to the Star Care Specialty Health System Board of Trustees. Our current appointees are Susanna Cisneros, Brian Welch, and Amanda Tiarina. And Susanna Cisneros' appointment is about to expire, but she is willing to continue to serve. So this is asking for your approval of her to continue to serve in a new appointment, or reappointment, I should say.
Members, you've heard the explanation. Is there discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And a quick note to say how much we appreciate Ms. Cisneros and our other board members for their willingness to serve on that important body. Okay, moving into item 8, administrative action items. Any members of the public who'd like to address the board regarding the administrative action item posted? Hearing none. Approval of the 23-24 Public Information Act calendar. Dr. Rollo.
Yes, so this is a new item.
I didn't know we had one.
This is a new item that we're bringing to you as a result of House Bill 3033 out of this last legislative session. And in addition to state and federal holidays and weekends, the district must select no more than 10 days that count as non-business days for the purpose of public information request. If somebody requests public information and we need to send it to the Attorney General's office for an opinion, we have to notify the requester within 10 business days. And so this calendar that we're asking you to adopt selects no more than 10 additional days in addition to holidays and weekends that we can count as non-business days. So for example, we are typically closed for 2 weeks during the Christmas holiday, but we cannot count all 10 of those days as non-business days with this new law in effect.
How much of an appropriation did the legislature give us for the time and effort it takes to put this together?
0.
Okay, just check it. Any other questions?
Waste of time.
Anybody just not want to do this today? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Got a motion and a second that we approve the Public Information Act calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-1, and I'm the one. Item 10, procurement and contracts. Do we have any members of the public who would like to address the board regarding any of the procurement and contract items posted? Seeing none, we'll move into approval of district purchases. Rick Rodriguez.
Yes, good morning, Board of Trustees. Just 2 items to bring for you this morning. The first one is a band and orchestra trip. The Monterey Band and Orchestra programs are going to be performing in Los Angeles. This is not going to include any expenditures of district funds. These will be pass-through funds that are going to be raised by through fundraisers with parents and other various private donations. The second one is the Texas Tech Career Center research and education team. They serve as evaluations. This is part of our 21st Century grant. And so we will use those funds to pay for the evaluations of Bean, Brown, O.L. Slayton, PIA, JJAP, and LCJJC. So, and I believe this isn't our first year, right?
And this is a requirement of the grant
Right.
that we have an outside evaluator. And the grant funds cover the cost of
Right.
this.
All right. Members, you've heard the explanation, pardon me, for the 2 district purchases. Do I have a collective motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of district construction purchases. Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, sir. This is an annual item that we bring to you. This is basically the availability for us to tap any one of these consultants for dirt testing. Last year, as you know, we had several construction projects that we accessed this for. And so this is on an as-needed basis. You see, it's not to exceed number. We don't anticipate tapping into this as we don't anticipate having any major construction projects, but just in case, we bring this for you for your consideration.
Members, you've heard the explanation. Are there questions?
Yeah, one quick question. Rick, all of them are local except W.C. Hamilton. Where is?
I would have to. Midland.
Any other questions? Do I have a collective do I have a motion to approve the set of district construction purchases?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's 8:03. We've been going about an hour. That concludes the business portion of the agenda. We have 2 workshop items to deal with as well. We're going to stand in recess, but give people a chance to stretch their legs, and we'll reconvene around 8:15. That work for y'all?
Yep, perfect.
We're in recess. It is 8:18 a.m. We will reconvene from a brief recess. We're moving into item 10 of this morning's agenda. That's the workshop session of our meeting. Item A, Lubbock ISD Leadership Pipeline. Dr. Rollo, good morning again.
Thank you. So as you guys know and have already actually approved as a board, Lubbock ISD was selected by the Holdsworth Center to participate in the District Partnership Program, which is a 4-year program designed to build our leadership pipeline. You guys know our 3 pillars. Develop leaders is one of those, and so this fits perfectly with our district's mission and values. And the work has already started, even though it's early September. We've already had 2 sessions actually at the campus. Bless you. And we've also had the Holdsworth people come to Lubbock and actually work with our district leadership pipeline team as well. Misty is our district champion for this work, and so I'm going to let her walk us through a presentation just so that you are aware of where we are in the process and what this will look like over the next year. And we will have this planned out on our workshop schedule on a periodic basis so that we're keeping you informed and getting your feedback as we move forward in this work. So Misty, I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. So we are really excited about this process, as Dr. Rollo said, and we want to just give you a high-level view of what it looks like and what the outcome goals are. And that's what we're most excited about, is where we're going. So the purpose of this entire program is based upon a theory of action that if you increase principal effectiveness, that increases teacher effectiveness and retention, which then increases student outcomes. So our goal is to get to student outcomes that are better and more effective, but in order to do that, we want to make sure that we have a consistent pipeline of principals standing in place. So our district goal is that when we complete this program, we will have what is called a 2-to-1 ratio of ready leaders. So for any position that we have in a leadership role, whether that is a principal or whether that is a central office leader, that we will have 2 people who are cross-trained, ready to rise up, sitting on the bench, if you will, in order to move into that position. And the purpose of this program is to help us to create the pipeline, so find and attract the people, but also train them, get them ready, and then support them in the process as they move forward. So we're looking at 3 things. We want to make sure we have a ratio of ready leaders, we have representation that matches our students, and then we have retention and stability. So that goes to attracting people, that goes to attracting people that look like our kids, and then that goes to keeping people in spaces where they are leaders because they feel really comfortable and confident in what they're doing. So the program works with us in the next 2 years, we will work to develop personal leadership, grow and empower and create change. So what happens in the beginning is I'll show you the teams that will work for the first 2 years and what that rhythm of work will look like. And then it will progress to where we take campus teams, and those campus teams will actually develop those same leadership skills in those last 2 years of the program. So as we do that in year 1, we begin by talking about what do we have? What does it look like? What does our bench look like? What do our vacancies look like? We'll do some forecasting. We'll create a leadership definition. And then we'll do that planning forward, if you will, to know what it is that we're missing or what we're potentially missing in the future. One of the critical components is creating a leadership definition. This is something that we'll share with you once it is devised, and that will come from a group of people across the district that will work together in a committee. The purpose of that is that we have to know what we're looking for. So we define something as a leader to make sure we're all on the same page with where we're going. So we have many groups that will work together. We have a team of 6 that represents that blue circle that is the DLP team. Those are central office representatives that Dr. Rollo leads our team as we work with Holdsworth and in each one of those challenges or each one of those opportunities to learn. We have a leadership pipeline team. In Lubbock ISD, this is our cabinet. So our cabinet team represents that next layer of team. And the next group we will develop is the Leadership Definition Task Force. This is a group we haven't defined yet, And in the next few months, we'll get some learning on how to put together a large group of people that can come together from across the district that can talk about what does it mean to be a leader and what are the characteristics we're looking for in a principal universally as we look for principals across the district. So when we talk about how to build that leadership pipeline, one of the things that we talk about is that it doesn't look the same across many different levels, and leadership doesn't look like that straight line. Many years ago, many years ago, that might have been the progression. You just went from one spot to the next, but it doesn't look like that anymore. And now we have change that looks more like this. So we have to help people evolve from what does it mean to be a teacher leader, that leader of yourself, and to a leader of others, all the way up to a leader of schools. And as you make that progression or that change, even though we typically go through this progression in the pipeline, we want to make sure that everyone can develop all three sets of skills that are skills, time, and value changes that have to take place at each one of those shifts. So you want to make sure when you're sitting in that new seat as a leader that you are using the skills, the values, and the time that are required in representation for where you are in that space. And that's the part that we're learning about and learning how to help our leaders to grow and to be there as well. What does it mean to make the shifts? And what does it mean to change over time? So our ultimate goal is that we have this full house built. So the house would be built that it is part of our district context and culture. We know what our leadership definition is. We know what our role structure is, so we can identify, develop, place, and support people, and make sure that we have that 2-to-1 ready bench for any position as we have change or turnover in the future. So this is kind of step one of what we're looking at in our work with Holdsworth, and we'll continue to bring you additional information each quarter, I think is when we have it set up, to share more information about our journey and what we've learned along the way. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
You talked about the that yellow circle, the definition. Is that what that was?
The leadership definition.
And you're going to select folks from where?
Those will come from all across the district. So we'll have representation from everywhere as part of the leadership definition. We actually will participate in it's a session that Holdsworth leads to help us identify to make sure we have enough stakeholders and stakeholders that represent everyone across the district, and that will take place in 2 weeks.
Will that also include community folks or just district folks that are in our district working?
I believe for that initial task force, it will be just district folks that are working, and then there are other task force later that include other pieces that go to outside. Yes, ma'am. So, and then we also are doing surveys with all of our everyone across the district to get feedback on that, and then they conduct focus groups as well.
Yes, so defining the change or defining where we are, there will be a survey that goes out to all district staff in 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am.
And that data will come back to us to help inform decisions, and then they'll also conduct focus groups.
And those started this morning. So they're meeting with all different types of groups. It's on Zoom. Just for 30 to 45 minutes. They're looking at teacher leaders, principals, assistant principals, new, veteran, with a cross-section across the district.
They're also doing a deep data dive into our campus leadership roles and turnover that we've had, so that we can really identify campuses where we've had more turnover in leadership than others.
So, Misty, was I mistaken, or did I see on one of the slides it was saying custodial as well, like develop them into the leadership? It was like in the red with librarians and.
So the ultimate goal is when you think about leadership could be at any level. So leadership is over Sodexo, over Durham, over Aramark, over anything that we have leaders in our district. We want to make sure that our leadership definition fits that and that we look at the pipeline. So do we have a 2-to-1 ratio? Yes.
So you're sort of going where I'm headed. So Sodexo, Durham, and our contractors, they're going to be part of this as well?
The ultimate goal is that we create a leadership definition with a system that then impacts how we interview, it impacts how we train and what we look at, so that our entire system is part of that. So we're not quite that far in the system yet. In our learning, since we've just started, to know how far that would go, we began with principals. But when we initially met with them, that was part of the big picture, to make sure that all levels and all roles. So I think so, but I want to confirm that as we learn a little bit more.
Absolutely. I'd be interested in knowing. I think we all would.
Thank you for this important update. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Misty. Item B, Safety and Security District Audit Report and Update. Stacy Carter.
Good morning. Thank you guys so much for having me. We'll get this presentation going. Awesome. So this is our safety and security update. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and we've had a lot of changes, not only in the district, but also within the state as well. So we're going to kind of talk very high level about some of those changes. So first, I just wanted to talk about my team. We did promote Amanda Wolfenbarger from secretary to security manager, so she now holds that position. We have hired our first ever threat manager for the district, J.C. Garrett Salter. And so she started in that role at the beginning of July and has been going full force since then. And then we have a new secretary, Michael Delgado, who took Amanda's spot as secretary there. We also have additional officers that work throughout the district. We have 2 full-time security officers. One works during the school day to make sure that all of our door checks are done every week and any audits that we need done are completed. He will also conduct intruder assessments in addition to the ones that we get from the Region Center. And then our other full-timer is our midnight guy. So he works our midnight shift Monday through Friday. And then we have 6 additional officers that are part-time. They help make sure that our district stays covered 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We have also hired a new temporary employee with some emergency management experience, and she's going to actually help us develop our shelter maps. That was her focus when she did her bachelor's and master's degree in emergency management, and so she knows a lot about shelter locations and the things that we talk about, but she's going to help us create those maps, which is going to be amazing. Super excited about her work. This is our new baby for this school year. It's Crisis Go. It is our emergency management and communication application. It took the place of Navigate 360. It is a growing process. We have been with Navigate 360 for 4 years. So we are having to unlearn the steps that we took in Navigate 360 and relearn new material. And so we've told our administrators and our staff to give themselves grace. It's going to take time to learn a new product. And the features are a little different. Ultimately, it does the same thing. It alerts the campus to something happening on the school or around the school, provides them the notification so they can take necessary steps. We can account for kids. So we're just still learning and growing with Crisis Go. We have used all of Crisis Go's toolkits with their videos and their check sheets, but we've also created our own as well. And then we continue to get feedback from our staff and administrators on where we can better improve our training to make sure we continue to grow and develop with this program.
Stacy, would you touch on just a little bit about why we made the switch to Crisis Go?
Sure. So one, it was about half the cost of Navigate 360, so it saved us money, which I know that's a big thing. The other thing is it allowed us to tailor rosters. So prior to this year, if a student was housed at a campus, like our high school students are housed at Coronado, and they go to the Aquatic Center, we can't account for them at the Aquatic Center because they're only tied to Coronado. Or if we have kids that are at the VTC, or if they're at REACH, or at the ATC, there were no rosters that we could import. Crisis Go has remedied that. So now all of those locations have rosters, so we can accurately and effectively account for students when we need to. And they're also very flexible and willing to work with us whenever we need adjustments made. So one of the ones we had recently is our middle school kids at some schools are double blocked for certain class periods. And their first period of that double block was showing up, but not their second period. And so that was brought to our attention by Stephen at Atkins, actually. And we were able to go in there, change some of the data as how it was being routed, and it was able to be pushed out. The other thing that Crisis Go does is you can't miss the notifications. We had some issues with notifications with Navigate. Sometimes they wouldn't always come through, and so people were missing the notifications in order to take necessary steps. If you've ever been in a room with anybody that hasn't turned their Crisis Go on Do Not Disturb, you get to hear me talking quite a bit on the app, and the sounds and stuff go off. It's pretty loud. And it also gives us the ability to add the application to Chromebooks, iPads, desktops, which we did not have the ability to do with Navigate. So for our substitutes or staff members who either don't want it on their cell phone or don't have a cell phone that has applications, we can put it on their desktop and they still receive the same notifications as everyone else. So a lot of really good benefits with moving to Crisis Go.
Thank you.
All right, so these are the grants, projects we currently have going on. Our STOP and COPS grant were through the Department of Justice. We applied for those a couple of years ago. STOP is all about threat assessment. It's what we're using to pay for our threat manager, and it's also what we use to pay for our training, specifically our School Safety Summit, where we bring in experts from around the country to train our staff. And then we have our COPS grant, which is more security, physical security, so we're just using it to bolster our current systems in place. And then TEA released several grants associated with school safety. One is the SPAT grant, or the Silent Panic Alert Technology grant, which we were awarded, and then the Safety Standards grant. So we've got a lot of grants going on, but hopefully we'll get through those and get stuff in place. I know you guys have talked about House Bill 3 already. But the focus has really been about our armed police officers, but there was a lot of information in House Bill 3, and it amended Senate Bill 11 significantly in terms of threat assessment. It also amended our notification process to parents when we have violent activity at the campus, and it just kind of outlines a little bit more information. And so I just wanted to kind of highlight some of those changes that were more specific to school safety than anything else. One of the things that is new is that if we have threat assessments on students, we have to actually maintain those records now until that student's 24th birthday. So that's a new piece in the legislation. And then the other thing that we'll be doing is the safe firearms storage resources. We'll be sending out those to families. That's required annually, and we're working on what that's going to look like and sound like for our district. And then our awesome safety allotment was increased to $10 per kid.
From what? What was it
from
previously?
$9.72, I think.
That's so generous.
And then they provided $15,000 per campus.
Wait a minute, so it wasn't just 15 grand per campus. We also got 78 more cents a kid.
No.
28.
28 cents.
Not 4 bits, 2 bits and 3 pennies.
That's right.
Okay.
It's about $6,700 new money.
The
Plus-
per student increase
Yes.
is for the whole district?
Yes. About
6,700.
That's going to go a long way.
Okay, thanks.
Here are 4 more, either Senate bills or House bills that were passed through this summer. One is the Silent Panic Alert Technology. They basically, they signed Alyssa's law into place, and that kind of correlates to Senate Bill 838, where we have to have panic alert technology in every classroom. We are in a very good spot in our district. We already meet this expectation, so there wasn't a lot we had to do for this Senate bill, but it is now written that we have to have that technology available. And then some more issues related to threat assessment. The biggest change for our threat assessment teams this year is we've always been really strategic about how we communicated to parents when we were conducting these assessments. Well, now we have a House bill that states that we have to inform the parent prior to conducting the assessment and provide them an opportunity to participate. And so we trained on what that looks like and sounds like this summer in our Through the Looking Glass content to make sure administrators knew what the expectation was moving forward. And then the opioid antagonist basically just protects us if we use Narcan at our campus to help a student that might be potentially overdosing. Our 21-23 audit cycle has completed.
Hey, let me back you up.
Sure.
On the Narcan thing. Are we able to get all of that drug that we might need? Do we have it if we need it?
All of our nurses have it, and
Okay.
all of our SROs carry it as well.
Okay, so our people that are qualified to have it, and it's in supply?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay.
So we did our 21-23 audits. This is called the DAR, the District Audit Report. We reviewed these this summer during our School Safety and Security Committee meeting, and then we actually already submitted our report to the Texas School Safety Center. We did that on July 13th. No major concerns with our findings, but we did review that with the committee, and we'll continue to revisit those. A lot of it was more policies and procedures, just things we hadn't really thought about. And then the next cycle will start. So we'll have another 3-year cycle that will open up, and so we'll start planning the timeline and what that's going to look like for the district too.
Is there a rating that you guys get on the DAR?
No, sir.
Grade or anything?
No, in fact, the actual report that you fill out for the Texas School Safety Center doesn't require us to submit any of our audit documents. It's basically, did you do this? Yes, we did. Did you do your instructional facilities? Yes. If so, how many? It's very basic in terms of what you report. So what we do is a lot more proficient and robust than what they actually require.
We gave ourselves an A.
Yes, I give us, A plus. This is a link to our safe and supportive school program data or our threat assessment data. Again, we reviewed this with our safety committee throughout the year. We do touch points at each of our committee meetings. I just gave you access to it, so if you want to go through and you've got questions, feel free to ask those. But this just shows a 4-year comparison starting in 2019 through last school year. And then, of course, we'll update this throughout the school year as we meet with our committee with this year's numbers. The next thing which is new is our Stop It data. So Stop It now has the ability to allow us to run different kinds of reports. And so I created a spreadsheet here for you guys to see that just shows how many reports we've received, what types of reports we're receiving, where we're receiving those reports. So we broke that down for you guys in this. On this very first page, it just talks about activations, which is how many people are accessing either our app or our website. And then the red is how many incidents are being reported. And we did add where we currently were for 23-24, but that number has changed since we sent this over last week. So, but you can click on that again. It's a link, and it'll take you into some more data tables. For training and instruction, we provide a wide variety of training for our district, and a lot of training. There isn't a single person that steps foot on our campus that doesn't have the ability to receive some type of training, whether that's face-to-face, whether it's virtual, whether it's one-on-one, small group. We're willing to work with anybody's schedule to make sure all of our needs are met. So we provide targeted training for small groups of people like our administrators, our counselors, and our nurses. But then we train all faculty, all staff, including our substitutes and temporary employees. And then, of course, we also train our students, and we provide instructional materials for them to make sure we're in compliance with the different Senate bills and House bills that are out there. And then we also revamped our website to make it a little bit more parent-friendly and provided access to all curriculum materials that are related to safety and security on there. So they have videos, they have the lesson plans, the questions that the teachers will be asking, and then we, of course, train the teachers on how to roll that curriculum out as well. And that website is linked there if you want to look at it. Reunification is something that we were tasked to have a plan for when I first started this position, which was about 5 years ago. And we have a district reunification plan. But at the beginning of May 10th, we had a social media threat that really caused some I guess, issues, some hysteria, some chaos in our district. And so after that, we met with, we had an after-action review where we just sat down and we debriefed the situation. And our department was tasked with coming up with a campus reunification plan. So the biggest difference between our district plan and our campus plan is our district plan is where we actually will take kids to a new site and reunify them with their families at a whole new building. But with our campus plan, we are actually reunifying those families on site, but we have to pivot away from our day-to-day operations. And our principals did an amazing job last year in doing that pivot on the spot, but we wanted something more substantial, something sustainable. And so we actually developed a campus reunification plan. We touched on it this summer. We're building those kits for the campuses, and then we'll provide additional training. The biggest thing is putting that campus in a hold. so that we can find kids without them transitioning during the moments when parents are there to pick them up. And so those were just some things that we talked about as a group. We met, we looked at the plan, and then we'll be launching that out for our campuses so that if we ever have something like that happen again, we're ready and able to assist our parents very quickly. And that's all I have for you. So what questions do you guys have for
Does the
me?
crisis go, is that the new parent check-in too? Is that in the vestibules now, or what is that? What?
The QR codes that are hanging up?
No, just
or-
when you go in to register to be a visitor, or to go in and visit the campus.
The same.
No, we've been using School Safe ID for that,
Okay.
and that hasn't
Same thing.
changed.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you getting this, other than website, how are you communicating it to the parents?
So, last year we did the community meetings, and we haven't had the turnout that we would desire for those. And so this year we did online webinars. We did one at 7 a.m., we did one at 6 p.m., and then we have some more coming up next week where we're doing again at 7 and then again at late at night. We're just trying to figure out best ways to reach them. And then what we did was we recorded the webinars. So if they weren't able to attend, we posted that on our website so that they could hear the information that was presented. And then I work with Aaron really well to get communication out when we need it. So we've got Start with Hello Week that's going to be coming up soon in September. And so we got communication out through the district communication methods, Facebook. I mean, we're trying everything. So we're open to ideas, though. Anything that we can try to get parents more engaged on the safety and security side.
May need a standalone. That's just my take. You know, a standalone safety and security site, so you can check actually the number of hits that you're getting. And just seeing how that's coming in right there.
Yeah, I think we can check the hit, how many people have viewed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask the same thing. Do you already know? You don't have that? How many people?
I've never
participated?
dug into the website before. I know most of our videos are YouTube videos because we can, add closed captions and things like that to them. So I can see on my YouTube channel, like how many views that I've had and stuff like that. But that's as far as I've ever gone. So that's something that we can definitely look into.
Might be worth having the call outs, like all the schools. I know with having multiple kids, I get calls and texts all the time about things, and before those webinars are going to happen, I think that would be a easier. Hey, this is going to be coming up. Here's how to access, and I think we'd get some better turnout on those.
Okay. You mean like a text alert or something?
Yeah, all the information that we get for our kids all the time.
I think the feedback we received in previous years was, why don't you do it at night? Because I can't come during the day. And so,
Do it at night, then.
They're doing it at night. They don't show up. And I just want to say, Stacey, I'm so grateful that we have you and your leadership and what you're putting together, what you have put together. I mean, I feel like, far ahead where other districts are. And thank you for your leadership and attention to detail and everything you do.
You guys have come a long way from when you first started. I remember that. We're like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into?
Yes,
You've
ma'am.
done amazing things, so thank you for sure. Just want to reiterate what that said.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'm just going to say this real quick on connecting with the parents again. Some of our campuses are really doing a great job. We just heard from Tommy Duncan on how he had an event and families are coming back. I think there was this perception that since our emphasis was on safety and security, with so many different protocols now parents have to go through, it's like they felt unwanted, right? But he's done some great events. Chris has done some great events over at OL Slate, and maybe when they're having those community events, ask them for a heads up and even come out and go old school, put a safety security booth up or something, and just take questions and comments from parents that are actually there and active, and just be engaging in those. See if you can find ways for your team to participate on those campus activities.
That's
Absolutely.
a great point
Yeah.
because OL has had great events, and we're talking in the hundreds, 500-600 people. Cavazos, same thing. Christy's did a phenomenal job. Her and Vanessa, the turnout that they had at the back to school bash, probably 800-900 people. What a perfect opportunity that would have been. I was going to ask you a really quick question. Since the whole incident that happened out at Monterey and whatnot, we do have a couple of schools that went back, have gone to the clear backpacks and the mesh. I'm curious to see if you guys will keep up with that and see how if that curves it at those schools, the clear backpacks and the mesh throughout the year, or maybe the first semester, as far as issues with the vaping. You know, kids are so strategic at hiding that vape, you know, or even weapons in those backpacks. So see how the issues are from one school to the other. Backpacks with that are clear, those that are closed up. That would be interesting, because I hate to say this, guys, but I hate to see that at one point we may have to go clear backpacks across the board. But if that's an issue, we won't know unless we get data. And I'd like
Yeah,
to
we
see
can
that.
definitely start collecting that. It's a campus principal decision, so they make the decision on how they want to
Exactly.
implement that. But we can definitely start looking at how that correlates to like our discipline data and what types of data we're
That'd be
seeing for those
great.
campuses.
That'd be great, because I think it's OWL and Cavazos.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Appreciate that.
excuse my ignorance.
Who is Mackenzie? Has
And I know,
Oh, that's right.
I know we
Hey,
started
guys,
this
let's
from.
try to have one conversation at a time if we might. Mr. Curry?
I know we started this from zero, but walk me through, or maybe Dr. Rolo, you. It seems like your team has grown significantly, and so I'm confused as to, like, you on the chart you had security officers, but yet we have a police department. So I'm not judging. I'd like to understand why we have differences. And
Yes, I can address that. So she has added a threat manager to her team, and that person is part of a grant. And so that's part of that. What's the name
The
of that?
STOP grant.
The STOP grant. So we're using that money to cover the cost of that threat manager. And the threat assessments, we're doing a much more thorough job, having somebody in place that is their sole responsibility. Amanda moved up to, what is her position?
Security manager.
Security manager. And then she replaced Amanda with a secretary. The security officers are not peace officers. They are not armed peace officers. They drive around and just check on things. And if people need into the building on the weekend, those kinds of things, we have a security number that they can call. Or if somebody sees a concern, they can call that number. They used to be housed in our police department, so the police chief oversaw the security officers. We've had them for a long time. That's not something new.
Gotcha.
But with the police officer force growing so fast, we knew we needed, we shifted that over to Stacy's purview so that he can focus on the peace officers, the police force.
That's certainly helpful to know on the security.
Yeah.
So once that grant is over, what becomes of that then?
I'm going to beg to keep her. I'm going to beg to keep her. Unless we see a decline in our numbers, we have not seen that. So over the course of the last 3 years, we've seen a very steady increase in our numbers when it comes to threat assessment. And so I'm hoping we have that grant for 3 years. I'm hoping that the data supports that we keep the position. If I can't get funding, I will write another grant. I mean, so the STOP grant's always available, so we can always add to that. And add additional people if we want. So that'll be something that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I'm going to beg and plead that we keep her and,
Well, I think
and
you have
find
3
money
years
for
to
it.
see if it's working or not.
Mhm. Right.
If
Absolutely.
not, then okay.
And threat assessment is proactive.
Nice.
That is a proactive approach to prevent things from happening rather than reacting all of the time.
And one of the biggest shifts that we had coming into this year is not waiting. Like we trained this summer on not waiting for a threat to be made, but identifying those concerning behaviors or those red flag behaviors before a threat is made. So if we have a kid with a lot of discipline issues, or we know that their home life is maybe not as stable as other students, identifying some of those things prior to and stepping in and providing intervention earlier. Because the longer we wait, once that kid gets on a pathway to violence, the more intense our interventions have to be. And so if we can be more proactive in identifying some of those concerning behaviors before, that's going to help us in the long run too.
I'm sure I'm going to butcher this, but Kathy, y'all did, like, DEA or somebody came and presented on opioids or during the summer to the leadership principals.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, the TAG unit came and presented to all of the administrators this summer on fentanyl.
That's the Texas
What-
anti-gang unit.
What is
Yes.
the chances that we can get that in our middle schools and high schools to the actual kids? Because hearing from some folks in the community that have seen that through other forums, they're like, man, that information's awesome, but that needs to be seen by the kids. And from what I understand, that group is willing
Yes.
and able. And so, like, those are the things, to me, it's much more practical for the kiddos to see it and, you know.
So there's actually a bill that was passed this summer that requires us to provide fentanyl awareness training to 6th through 12th graders. And so TAG is actually coming to present to SHAC. So SHAC is going to head up the curriculum that we put in place for those kiddos.
Yeah.
And so they're actually coming to present to SHAC. And we'll have all those opportunities for that group to make the decisions on when and what we're going to implement for the students.
I'd encourage it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard from a close friend that was in the presentation or whatever, and not the material, but the actual presentation. He was like, man, that's a deal changer. So if we can, sooner the better. I think that's an issue. And then one thing I would say, and I commend you guys for trying to reach out to parents. I think we've all seen, nobody really cares until they care, whatever the issue is, whether it's books or masks or whatever, you know, everybody has their hot button. And the one thing I would commend y'all on and ask y'all to continue to do better, I think the quicker y'all can get out notification to parents that, hey, not the specifics, but we're aware of an issue, you know, staff or police or whatever are on notice, I think that calms nerves, because I think the vast majority, especially like last year, which was a cluster, and kudos to everybody who worked on that, but people get hysterical and they assume things, and they, you know, and so the quicker I think we can communicate, hey, we're not giving you details about whatever it may be, a gun on campus or whatnot. And then my last point, I would love to see us, speaking like Lala brought up about the Monterey issue, I'd love to see us create a fund, whether that's businesses given to it or whatnot, that rewards those kids who actually speak up. Because, I mean, the fact that a kid reported another kid and we avoided the possibility of a horrible situation, like, man, that's awesome. And those kids are going to do far better, no disrespect, than you'll ever be able to do, because they're there in the moment. Right. And so I'd love to see us try to come up with something creative to, you know, see something, say something.
Absolutely.
I just want to hit on that tag team that you were just talking about. It's not new. It's been around for a long time, and I know that you haven't heard much about it. But anytime any of our school districts, our teachers, they've requested, they have come out, actually, Ryan, have come out. I have heard them several times in our district. And you're right, there are at a lot of places like forums, because I've also seen them there at the neighborhood associations. And they've actually talked to me and all of us about what schools they have hit up. If the school calls us, hey, can you guys come out? They're more than happy to come out. So they've been around for years. But the information, you guys, is phenomenal. So the things that you heard, it's so true. And I wish that they could do one great big old thing, like during the convocation. That would be a perfect opportunity for everybody to hear it.
Well, I'd rather talk about more exciting things than
Well, I know, but you know what? That's reality.
Yeah.
Reality.
Unfortunately.
But it's now required by law.
Yes.
So
that
that's
we
great.
teach 6th
And
through
they're
12th grade.
phenomenal
6th through 12th
group.
grade. And it's, and Shaq, like I said, is going to handle that. So we're working with not only TAG, of course, Chad Curry. He's presented at our campuses before on substance abuse as well. And then we also partnered with the Houston Crime Stoppers, and they provide some student training. So we're going to present all that to Shaq, and then they'll be able to make some informed decisions on how we move forward.
Is there any way we can put all of this in a book and put it in the library?
Okay.
That's a little too soon.
That's a nice way of wrapping this up.
A little too soon.
On that note,
It is 8:56 in the morning, and we do need an executive session to be held under the provisions of the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. 8:56, we're adjourned to executive across the hall.
Bill, you were serious, weren't you?